I heard my boyfriend's voice through the apartment door before I even put my key in the lock. "She's going to propose tonight," he said, laughing. "Watch me say no and make her cry." I stopped cold in the hallway. 2 coffees slowly cooled in my hands, the small velvet ring box pressed against my side inside my coat. My heart didn't just break. For one terrifying second, it forgot how to beat. 4 years. I'd spent 4 years loving Ethan, and now his voice slipped through that door as casually as if he were talking about the weather. He was telling someone exactly how he planned to humiliate me in front of everyone who mattered to us. The ring was in my pocket. I'd picked it up that very morning. I took one slow breath, forced my face back into place, unlocked the door, and walked inside as if I'd heard absolutely nothing. Ethan was stretched across the couch with his phone against his ear, still smiling. "Yeah, I'll call you later, Mason," he said quickly before ending the call. Then he looked up. "Hey, you're home early." "I got lucky," I replied. "Traffic wasn't bad." He smiled like everything in the world was perfectly normal, like my entire future hadn't collapsed less than 30 seconds earlier. He had no idea I already knew exactly who he really was. That night I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. His words kept replaying in my head. "Watch me say no and make her cry." Sunday. That was supposed to be the day. Dinner at his parents' house, candles, family, the perfect proposal. Instead, I could barely stand looking at him without feeling sick. Ethan kept asking if I was okay. He touched my hand. He brushed my hair behind my ear. He said I looked exhausted. Every act of kindness felt rehearsed. Every smile looked fake. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him why. Why stay with me for 4 years? Why let me believe we were building a future? Why wait until the most vulnerable moment of my life just to destroy me in front of everyone? But I didn't ask. I smiled. I lied. I pretended everything was fine. Later that night, I sat alone on the edge of our bed staring at the ring box on my nightstand. 8 months of saving. 3 months planning every detail. His mother had hugged me the week before when I'd quietly asked for her blessing. "Welcome to the family, sweetheart," she'd whispered. At the time, I'd nearly cried from happiness. Now I wanted to cry for a completely different reason. Sunday arrived much sooner than I wanted. Oddly enough, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even scared. There was only a strange emptiness inside me, a heavy calm, the kind that settles over you when something inside has already died. Ethan talked the entire drive to his parents' house, office gossip, a documentary he'd started watching, some podcast episode he wanted us to listen to together. His voice sounded perfectly ordinary. Every word hurt. How could someone sound so relaxed while planning something so cruel? I gripped the steering wheel until my fingers turned white. Part of me wanted to turn around and drive home. Another part needed to see the truth with my own eyes. Needed proof that I hadn't imagined everything. When we pulled into the Parker family's driveway, Ethan reached for my hand. "You've seemed different all weekend," he said softly. "Everything okay?" I forced another smile. "Just tired." Inside, dinner smelled incredible. Mrs. Parker had made roast chicken, my favorite. I pushed the food around my plate, pretending to eat enough that no one would worry. Mr. Parker talked about a fishing trip he'd been planning for months. Ethan's younger brother, Owen, proudly showed everyone pictures of the puppy he'd adopted. Everyone laughed, even Ethan. For one brief moment, he looked exactly like the man I'd fallen in love with. Then he turned toward me. "Right, Nora?" I hadn't heard a single word anyone had said. I simply nodded. "See?" Ethan grinned. "Told you she'd agree." His mother laughed. His father gave me that familiar warm smile, the same smile he'd worn ever since he started calling me family. The ring inside my pocket suddenly felt impossibly heavy. "Nora, would you like some more potatoes?" Mrs. Parker asked kindly. "No, thank you." "I'm full." Another lie. I'd barely touched my dinner. Under the table, Ethan squeezed my hand 3 times, our little signal. 3 squeezes meant, "I love you." We'd invented it during our 2nd month together. Without saying a word, I slipped my hand away and reached for my water instead. His smile faltered, just for a second. Mr. Parker wiped his mouth with his napkin. "So, Nora, how's that new client going?" "Really well. We finalized everything on Friday. They were thrilled." "I knew you would," he said proudly. "You've always been one of the hardest working people I've ever met." That hurt more than I expected. This man respected me, trusted me, already thought of me as his future daughter-in-law. Mrs. Parker leaned toward us. "We've been talking about our anniversary trip. 40 years. We're thinking about Italy." She smiled at both of us. "Maybe you two could come with us." "Wouldn't that be romantic?" Ethan laughed nervously. "Mom." "Oh, don't start. I'm just saying. 2 couples in Italy sounds wonderful." Silence settled over the table. Everyone seemed to be waiting. Everyone except Ethan. They all believed tonight was going to end with a proposal. Owen finally broke the awkward pause. I think they'll figure things out in their own time. No pressure. He was only 23. Yet somehow he seemed to read the room better than everyone else. Mr. Parker chuckled. Exactly. Nora always knows what she's doing. I glanced at Ethan. His expression was impossible to read. Nervous, uneasy, expectant. I need to use the restroom, I said, pushing back my chair. Second door on the left, Mrs. Parker reminded me. The hallway suddenly felt much narrower than I remembered. Family photos covered every wall. Ethan, as a little boy, his graduation, our beach vacation last summer. One picture showed us laughing together with his arm wrapped around my shoulders. Owen had taken it. Looking at that photograph now made one question echo through my head. Had any of it been real? I locked the bathroom door and gripped the edge of the sink. Dark circles stared back at me from the mirror. I looked exhausted. Older. I pulled out my phone. The recording was still there. The one I'd started without thinking when I first heard his voice through the apartment door. I pressed play. She's going to propose tonight. Watch me say no and make her cry. Mason laughed. That's evil. She's gotten way too comfortable, Ethan replied. She needs to remember who's really in control. I stopped the recording. I'd already listened to it too many times. A knock sounded on the door. Nora? You okay? His voice. I shoved my phone back into my pocket. Yeah. 1 second. You've barely talked all weekend. When I opened the door, he stood there wearing the watch I'd bought him for his birthday. Looking concerned, looking caring, looking exactly like the man I'd spent 4 years believing in. That somehow made everything even worse. I'm okay. Just tired. You sure? If something's bothering you, you can tell me. His eyes searched my face carefully. Not with concern, with suspicion. Was he trying to figure out whether I knew? Nothing's wrong, I answered evenly. Let's go back. Dessert was homemade apple pie. Another one of my favorites. No one spoke very much. Ethan tried several times to restart the conversation. Every attempt died almost immediately. The tension had become impossible to ignore. When everyone finished eating, Mrs. Parker stood. Nora. Would you help me take the recycling outside? It sounded like the most ordinary request in the world. Instead, it felt like stepping towards something inevitable. The cool evening air hit my face the moment we stepped outside. Mrs. Parker set the recycling bin beside the garage and looked at me for a long moment. I know that look, she said gently. When something's wrong, you carry it in your eyes. Talk to me. My chest tightened. She didn't deserve any of this. None of them did. Mrs. Parker, I need to tell you something. But not tonight. Her expression changed immediately. Is this about Ethan? Yes. She folded her arms quietly. Are you two having problems? You could say that. She sighed. He's my son. But you've become like a daughter to me. If he's done something, I want to help. Tears threatened to rise into my eyes. You'll understand everything soon. I just need a little more time. She searched my face for several seconds before nodding. I trust you. Whatever this is, I know you'll handle it the right way. She squeezed my arm before we walked back inside. The drive home was almost silent. For the first 10 minutes, Ethan stared out the window, scrolling through his phone. Finally, he spoke. What was that tonight? What do you mean? You barely talked. You acted cold. And what were you telling my mom outside? Work. He gave a short laugh. You seriously expect me to believe that? I don't really care what you believe. His head turned sharply toward me. What is your problem lately? My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. The words sat on the tip of my tongue. I know. I heard everything. I know exactly what you're planning, but I swallowed them. Not yet. We stopped at a red light. I looked directly at him. Do you love me? He blinked. What? Of course I do. Why would you ask something like that? I just wanted to hear your answer. The light turned green. I drove on. Out of the corner of my eye, I watched him unlock his phone. His thumbs immediately started moving across the screen. Probably texting Mason, probably wondering why I hadn't proposed. Good. Let him wonder. When we got home, Ethan went straight to bed. I stayed in the living room. I opened my laptop and signed into our joint account, the one we'd opened for rent, utilities, and groceries. 3 cash withdrawals immediately caught my attention. $500, $300, $700, all within the last few weeks, all made by him. I opened a spreadsheet and began documenting everything. Dates, amounts, ATM locations. Then I searched Mason's public social media. 2 weeks earlier, he'd posted photos from an expensive restaurant. The same evening, Ethan had told me he'd been working late. I kept digging. Eventually, I found an Instagram account I didn't even know Ethan had. One photo showed us having dinner together. The caption read, "She treats me well, even though I paid for everything." Another said, "Finally living the life I deserve." I took screenshots of every single post. Then I texted Priya. She was my best friend's cousin, a software engineer who owed me a favor after I'd helped her land an important client the year before. Can deleted messages be recovered if I have access to the phone? She answered almost immediately. Depends on the phone. Why? It's my boyfriend's. We share bills and the apartment is under my name. A few seconds later, she replied, legally it's complicated, but technically it's possible. Bring it tomorrow. From the bedroom, I could hear Ethan breathing peacefully, completely unaware. I made coffee after midnight and spent the next hour reading article after article about emotional manipulation, gaslighting, love bombing, financial control, guilt, isolation. One checklist listed 20 warning signs. Ethan matched nearly half of them. How had I never seen it? Because I'd loved him. Because I believed we were building a future together. I put the ring back inside my desk drawer, not because I planned to return it, because I wasn't finished yet. If I'd learned one thing during the past 24 hours, it was this. Timing mattered, and this time, I was going to choose mine. The next morning, I left before Ethan woke up. I stuck a note beside the coffee maker. Early meeting. See you tonight. At work, my best friend, Dana, walked into my office carrying 2 coffees. So? She set one on my desk. What happened? You were supposed to propose yesterday. I shrugged. I changed my mind. She frowned. You've been planning that for months. People change. No, she folded her arms. Something happened. I stared at my monitor. I just need to figure a few things out. Dana studied me quietly. That sounds serious. It probably is. She nodded. I won't push. But when you're ready, I'm here. That afternoon, I sat across from Melissa Grant, a family attorney Dana had recommended. She listened without interrupting while I explained everything. 4 years together. Shared apartment, joint account, the recording, the planned humiliation. When I finished, she folded her hands. Are you married? No. Children? No. That simplifies things. She opened a legal pad. The shared account is the only complicated issue. He has access to those funds. But if most of the money came from your income and you can document that, it helps. I have every pay stub. Every deposit. Excellent. Open a personal account. Move your money gradually. If you empty everything overnight, he'll notice immediately. She glanced at another page. The apartment lease? My name only. She nodded again. Then legally he's considered an occupant. You can serve him formal notice to move out. It's the cleanest solution. I filled pages of notes during the consultation. The fee was $200. It was worth every penny. That evening, Ethan came home later than usual. How was your day? Fine. He sat beside me on the couch. Nora. We need to talk. I looked at him. You've been distant. Cold. Is this work? Work's fine. Then what is it? I studied his face carefully. Really studied it. He was still handsome, still familiar. But now every feature carried the memory of that recording. Are you happy? I asked. He frowned. What kind of question is that? Just answer it. Of course I'm happy. Why wouldn't I be? I don't know. You tell me. He shook his head. You're acting strange. Where is all this coming from? I stood up. Forget it. He sighed in frustration and disappeared into the bedroom. 5 minutes later, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Nora? It's Owen, Ethan's younger brother. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. Of course. What's wrong? There was a long pause. I just wanted to ask. What happened Sunday? What do you mean? Ethan came home angry. He said you ruined dinner. I didn't ruin anything. I know. That's why I'm calling. Something in his voice made me stop breathing. Something feels off. He's been acting weird lately. Going out more, spending money, keeping his phone face down. My stomach tightened. What kind of weird? He seemed nervous before dinner. What, like he was waiting for something. And after you left, he called someone. He kept whispering. I heard your name a few times, but it wasn't anyone in the family. I closed my eyes. Thank you for telling me. Is everything okay? No, but it will be. He hesitated. You're not going to tell me what's happening, are you? Not yet, but soon. Just be careful. I will. So will you. The call ended. For the first time since hearing that recording, I realized I wasn't the only person who had started seeing through Ethan's mask. The next morning, while Ethan was in the shower, I slipped his phone into my bag. Priya lived downtown in a tiny apartment overflowing with computer monitors, cables, and empty energy drink cans. She took one look at me and frowned. You haven't slept in days. I haven't. Leave it with me. By 10 that morning, my phone rang. You should come back. Her tone told me everything. When I arrived, she already had a thick folder waiting on the desk. It took all night, but I recovered the deleted conversations. She turned the monitor toward me. The first thread was between Ethan and Mason. Months of messages. My stomach tightened as I started reading. Ethan, Sloan asked me to dinner again. Are you going? Why not? Nora doesn't need to know. A week later, Sloan offered me a position, triple my salary. Seriously? Ethan. The only problem is it's in Seattle. Another message. What about Nora? She doesn't belong in that world. Sloan does. My hands began to shake. Priya quietly slid a box of tissues toward me. I kept reading. Weeks later, Nora's been talking about buying a ring. Wait, she's actually proposing? Yep. What are you gonna do? Say no. She needs to understand she doesn't control everything. That's cruel. It's necessary. If I say yes now, I'll never get out clean. I closed my eyes for a second, then forced myself to continue. The newest messages had been sent only days earlier. Ethan, she never proposed. Something went wrong. Think she knows? Maybe. She acted strange all night. Even Mom noticed. I need to figure out what she knows. There are more, Priya said quietly. She opened another conversation. This one was with Sloan. Lunch this week? Somewhere private. Like last time. You're terrible. You love it. That was enough. I couldn't read another word. Priya printed every message, every screenshot, every deleted conversation. She placed everything inside a large envelope. Timestamps. Backups. Everything is there. What do I owe you? She shook her head. Nothing. Just promise me one thing. Don't let him convince you this was your fault. I nodded silently. On the drive back to work, I stopped twice because I couldn't see through the tears. This wasn't one stupid mistake. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't fear of commitment. It was months of planning, months of lying, months of waiting for someone better before throwing me away. And he intended to enjoy watching it happen. My phone buzzed. Ethan, where are you? Thought we were having lunch. I stared at the message, then typed back. Got caught up at work. Tomorrow? A few seconds later, he replied. Of course, that little heart made me physically sick. Instead of meeting him, I drove straight to the bank. I opened a new account in my own name. Over the next hour, I carefully transferred half the balance from our joint account, $20,000. Not enough to alert him immediately, enough to protect myself. After that, I visited an apartment 10 minutes from my office. 2 bedrooms, quiet neighborhood, available in 2 weeks. The leasing agent smiled. Would you like some time to think? No, I'll take it. I signed every document without hesitation. For the first time in days, I felt like I was finally moving forward. That Monday, our company introduced an outside consultant. Our new operations advisor, my manager announced. Please welcome Daniel Brooks. He stepped into the conference room wearing a simple gray suit, early 30s, calm, confident, the kind of confidence that never needed to prove itself. I'll be meeting with everyone individually this week, he said. Don't worry. I'm here to learn how things work, not make your lives miserable. A few people laughed. After the meeting, he walked over to my desk. Nora? You're first on my schedule. At 1:30, he knocked on my office door carrying nothing except a notebook. He already knew my performance numbers, the accounts I'd closed, the growth I'd generated over the past year. Impressive, he said. You must really enjoy what you do. I try to stay consistent. He smiled slightly. Consistency is rarer than talent. Most people quit before they ever become great. He flipped a page. So, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? A quiet laugh escaped me. A week ago, I would have had an answer. And now? I honestly don't know. He looked up from his notes. Rough week? You could say that. He didn't ask another question, didn't pressure me, didn't pretend to understand. After a moment, he simply said, sometimes life tears up the plan you thought you wanted. And eventually you realize it made room for a better one. Something about that made my guard slip. My boyfriend, I began, then corrected myself. Maybe not for much longer. He waited. I told him everything. Not every detail. Just enough. The recording, the planned proposal, the other woman, the lies. When I finished, he remained silent for several seconds. I'm sorry. That kind of betrayal changes people. It already has. So what happens now? I leave. No screaming. No revenge. I'm just done. He nodded slowly. That's harder than revenge. I looked at him. Most people think revenge gives closure. It doesn't. It keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. Before leaving my office, he handed me his business card. If you ever need someone impartial to listen, call. Then he paused. And Nora, whoever treated you like that never deserved the future you were planning to give him. For the first time in almost a week, someone made me feel seen without making me feel broken. Over the next several days, Daniel stopped by for follow-up meetings. Sometimes we talked about work. Sometimes we talked about life. He told me he'd moved to the city 6 months earlier after a difficult divorce. When silence becomes more comforting than the person beside you, he said one afternoon over coffee, that's usually your answer. I knew exactly what he meant. It hurts now, he added, but clarity is a strange gift. Once you have it, you can't unknow the truth. By Thursday, Ethan appeared at my office without warning. A bouquet of flowers rested in his hand. Surprise. I missed you. I thought we could grab lunch. I have a meeting. In 10 minutes. His smile faded. You've been avoiding me all week. What's going on? Nothing. Don't lie to me. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. Do you still love me? A week earlier, I would have answered without thinking. Now the word wouldn't come. I have to go. I walked past him. Nora, please. I never looked back. That weekend, I told Ethan I had to leave town for work. Instead, I stayed with Dana. We sat at her kitchen table for hours, planning every possible scenario. What if he denied everything? What if he got angry? What if he cried? What if he refused to leave? By Sunday night, every step was planned. Monday morning, I woke before sunrise. The envelope sat on the kitchen table, printed messages, screenshots, bank records, the notice to vacate, everything I needed. At 8 o'clock, I called Mrs. Parker. Could we meet today? If you're available. She didn't hesitate. Of course. The little cafe on Maple? 10. I'll be there. Before leaving, I wrote Ethan another note. Went for a run. Back later. Mrs. Parker arrived exactly on time. She smiled when she saw me. Then the smile disappeared. You look exhausted, sweetheart. What happened? Without saying a word, I slid the envelope across the table. I need you to see this. She slowly opened it. At first, she looked confused, then concerned, then horrified. She reached the screenshots, the messages, Sloane's name, the recording transcript. I watched the color disappear from her face. Her voice barely came out. He was seeing another woman? For months. I nodded. He planned to reject me publicly. He wanted to embarrass me. Those were his own words. She closed her eyes. For several long seconds, she couldn't speak. When she finally looked back at me, she seemed years older. I don't even recognize my son. I didn't either. Silence settled between us. Finally, she asked, What are you going to do? I already have. I opened my own account. I signed a lease. And today I'm giving him 30 days to move out. She looked down at the papers again. The apartment? It's in my name. She nodded slowly. That's fair. It hurts, but it's fair. She carefully placed every document back inside the envelope. May I keep copies? His father deserves to know the truth. Of course. She reached across the table and took my hand. Nora, I'm so sorry. I truly believed you were going to become my daughter. Tears filled both our eyes. I thought so too. She stood and hugged me tightly. What my son did is unforgivable. You deserve someone who protects your heart, not someone who plays with it. When we walked into the parking lot, she hugged me once more before getting into her car. I watched her drive away. Then I took one deep breath. It was time. When I got home, Ethan was sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee. I thought you went running. I did. Then I had somewhere to be. Where? With your mother. His hand froze halfway to his mouth. My mom? Why? I placed the envelope on the table because she deserved to know the truth. His eyes locked onto it immediately. What's in there? The real version of the last few months. He reached for the envelope. I opened it first. One by one, I spread the papers across the table. Phone records, messages, screenshots, bank withdrawals. His face turned white. You went through my phone? I did. That's illegal. That's a violation of my privacy. I met his eyes. And planning to publicly humiliate the woman who loves you? What do you call that? His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Finally, he whispered, You don't understand. Mason and I were joking. I almost laughed. Joking? About making me cry? About replacing me? About using me until something better came along? It's not what it looks like. Then explain it. He stared at the table. His breathing became uneven. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted. No, you knew exactly what you wanted. You wanted control. His eyes filled with tears. Nora, I love you. I made a mistake. I shook my head slowly. A mistake is forgetting my birthday. A mistake is saying something cruel during an argument. This, I pointed at the stack of papers, was a plan. He reached toward me. I stepped back. Please don't touch me. We can fix this. No, there's nothing left to fix. His voice broke. I love you. I swear I do. You don't even know what love is. You know possession. You know manipulation. You know control. But love? No, he collapsed back into the chair. His shoulders shook. You told my mother. She deserved to know who her son really is. Please, don't destroy my family. I looked at him quietly. I didn't destroy anything. You did. I pulled the final document from the envelope, the formal notice. I placed it gently in front of him. You have 30 days. His hands trembled as he picked it up. You can't be serious. The lease is in my name. I'm completely serious. Where am I supposed to go? I shrugged. That's no longer my responsibility. For a moment, he sat perfectly still. Then he gave one desperate laugh. It doesn't matter. Sloan wants me. I'll stay with her. I don't need this. I almost smiled. No, you won't. His forehead creased. What? Your mother contacted her company. Not to cause problems. She simply asked for a character reference. Sloan found out you were still living with the woman you planned to humiliate. She ended everything. She also withdrew the job offer. He stared at me. No? She blocked your number yesterday. Check. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped his phone. He unlocked it, scrolled, called once, twice, nothing. Whatever he saw destroyed the last bit of confidence he had left. His shoulders slumped. The room became completely silent. I picked up my car keys. You wanted to watch me cry. I opened the front door. It's funny how life works. Behind me, I heard him sob. Nora, please, I'll change. I'll do anything. I looked back one final time. I know. That's the saddest part. You only wanted to change after you lost everything. I stepped outside, closed the door, and stood there for several seconds with my eyes closed. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from relief. It felt like I had been holding my breath for months. When I arrived at Dana's, she opened the door before I even knocked. Well, it's over. How did he react? He cried. He begged. He apologized. She searched my face. Do you feel guilty? I thought about it. About the proposal that never happened. About the ring still sitting in my drawer. About 4 years I would never get back. Then I slowly shook my head. No, I feel free. Over the next few weeks, Ethan packed his things quietly. There were a few messages, a few missed calls, long emails promising therapy, change, a new beginning. I never answered. His father sent me one short letter. He apologized for his son's actions and thanked me for telling them the truth instead of disappearing without an explanation. Mrs. Parker mailed the engagement ring back after I'd left it with her. Inside the box was a handwritten note. One day, someone worthy of this ring will say yes. I smiled through tears. A month later, standing in my new apartment with sunlight pouring through the windows, I opened the drawer and looked at that little velvet box one last time. It no longer reminded me of the future I'd lost. It reminded me of the life I'd saved. For the first time in a very long time, the silence around me didn't feel lonely. It felt like peace.